So in this tutorial, we're going to talk about the multiple shipping addresses per order feature. This feature allows your customers to assign multiple shipping addresses within a single order. So each item, also referred to as a job, in an order can now have its own designated shipping address. This enhancement provides greater flexibility for orders that need to be delivered to different locations, streamlining the checkout process by eliminating the need to place separate orders. Now, there are some important notes with this. Please be aware of the following limitations in the initial implementation of this feature, which at the time of recording is at the end of September 2024. So there's no separate shipping methods per address. All items share the same shipping method. There's no increased shipping costs per address, so additional costs are included in the subtotal. There's no separate job tickets or packing slips per address, and there's no individual status updates via Connect webhooks or shipping plugins. Okay, so let's take a look at how we enable and configure the multiple shipping addresses feature. So we enable the feature in our basket settings. So I'm just going to navigate back to my Infigo admin area and then search for my basket settings, which based on your location may be as cart settings. Within here, we're going to locate the additional addresses section. And then if not enabled already, you want to enable this checkbox here, which is enable additional addresses. Now, what you'll see as we switch between those is we get some additional settings becoming visible. And these are required checkout attributes, which we're linking to. So after enabling the feature, you need to create and assign specific checkout attributes to manage the additional address information. So checkout attributes, you can find information on those on other resources within the Infigo Academy. But what it's basically doing is allowing you to place attributes on the actual checkout process or basket screen itself. We're going to create some new ones. So I'm just going to go to my checkout attributes screen. And you'll see in my case that I've created the 3 checkout attributes that we require. These are very easy to create, but for this piece of functionality, they do need to be very precise in how they're configured. So the first of these is just going to be the additional addresses checkout attribute. If you haven't created one already, you can just click add new at the top of the screen. In that particular attribute configuration, you need to make sure that the control type is set to system. And then the attribute context, which is further down, is set to additional address. The purpose of this, it stores the JSON information about the additional addresses that we're putting into our checkout process. The second checkout attribute we need is additional addresses info. So again, you can create a new one. I'm just going to show you how I've configured my example. So the settings you require on this, the control type is required to be info, and then the attribute context is required to be additional addresses. The purpose of this one is it displays readable information about the additional addresses to the customer. And then we have a third checkout attribute, which is optional, which is to do with the pricing. Again, this has a couple of specific requirements. Its control type needs to be system, and then its attribute context needs to be additional address. And the purpose of this one, it controls how much you want to charge per additional address. Now, there are some additional configuration options available with the pricing one. So if you do want to utilize this and then you want to charge an additional fee per address, you need to define what that fee is going to be. And we can do this by creating an attribute value with the name of 1. And this is how it actually recognizes it. Once you've created that attribute value, you can set the price adjustment to be whatever you want it to be. So if you haven't got one already, click on Add New Checkout Value. But in my case, if I click on Edit, you can see I've set a value of £3, and then I've set that to an absolute value. Okay, so once we've configured those 3 checkout attributes, we need to go back to our basket or cart settings. Find those same settings and enable the additional addresses feature. And then you're going to link up the 3 checkout attributes with the relevant sections here. So we've got one which is just the generic checkout attribute we created, one which is attributing the price, and one which is looking at info. So we're just linking those up, and then make sure you click save at the top of the screen. Now let's take a quick look at how this feature actually works. So I'm going to navigate to the front end of my storefront. And if you are replicating this, make sure there's something added to your basket. In my case, I've already got something added to basket. Now, once this feature has been enabled, the customer will be able to see an additional addresses button at the bottom left of their basket or cart screen. Clicking this button opens a pop-up window where customers can assign different shipping addresses to each item. So a little overview of this pop-up window that we have here. So we have a product list that you can see there. In my case, it's only one item within the list. If we expand that so we can see the address that it's currently going to, this is where the customer can split the total quantity of each item amongst multiple addresses. So the first address that we've got there is considered the main shipping address and cannot have a quantity that's less than 1. Quantities across all other addresses must sum up to the total quantity that's ordered. So let's go through this. If I go to add new address, that allows the customer to create a new address directly in the pop-up window. Alternatively, I can select an existing address from this account. If there's any missing information, I will be required to fill it in before I can confirm. Once I've put those addresses in, you can see I've got the ability to edit the address or remove the address as well. Now, what you'll see as well is that the system will ensure that quantities add up correctly. So our total quantity of this item is 20. And now I've got the ability with this secondary address here to choose how many of that 20 I want to go to that particular address. And you can see that has a knock-on effect on the quantity going to my primary address. You can also see that it's registering the £3 additional fee that I specified per additional address. Now I'm just going to proceed through the checkout process and place my order. So after placing an order, customers can view their additional address information on the order confirmation page. So you can either get to it straight from the ordering page, or you can go to My Account and My Orders. That will show all the address information on the different orders that we've placed. Okay, so some final notes and considerations. So first off, cart updates. If the quantity of items changes after configuring additional addresses, the system will adjust the quantities and addresses accordingly. Adding or removing products from the cart will require customers to review and adjust their additional addresses. A little bit on the main shipping address. The main shipping address is always included and cannot be deleted. It is used for shipping cost calculations and is considered the default address. Pricing for additional addresses. If configured, additional charges for extra addresses are added to the subtotal, as we saw during that ordering process. The main shipping address does not incur an extra charge. And then finally, validation errors. So customers will receive error messages if there are issues with address information or quantity assignments. Errors must be resolved before they can proceed to the checkout.